everybody. My name is Katie, and I am so happy to welcome you today to the Daily Dose. I'm reading a novel right now that is a modern retelling of ancient Greek mythology. And it's a book that was recommended to me, and as I was reading it the other day, I was reflecting on how much I love this particular genre, this type of novel. And maybe it's because my kids really got into the Percy Jackson series. If you've heard of those, they're young adult novels that tell about the adventures of this kid named Percy, a teenager who thinks he's just an ordinary kid from New York, but is actually a Greek demigod. And they're hugely popular books, and I think it's because these books, and the one I'm reading right now, they take these ancient myths of Greek gods like Poseidon and Zeus, and goddesses like Athena and Artemis, and they retell them in really fun and interesting ways. And hear me out, I am definitely no expert on the origins of ancient Greek mythology, but as a modern day reader of these retellings, I can see why these stories have captured people's imagination for years. See, a myth, by definition, is a traditional or legendary story, usually concerning some being or hero or event, with or without a determinable basis of fact or a natural explanation. Many of these myths involve heroes like gods or goddesses, of course, but a myth is also defined as any invented story, idea, or concept, an imaginary or fictitious thing or person. And then there's this definition, an unproved or false collective belief that is used to justify a social institution. Okay, so why all this talk about myths today on the Daily Dose? Well, I'm talking about another type of myth that we as adults in the 21st century often set our sights on, and that is the myth of work-life balance. That's right. Like many of you, I constantly ask myself, how will I balance, for instance, the ways I care for people in my job here at the church with all the ways I also want to care for my kids and my family? Or how will I balance the number of weeknight meetings with the number of family meals we have together? This idea of striving for balance, it's a hot topic for me, maybe for you. I confess that I am one who is always intrigued, maybe suckered, by end cap aisles at Target that highlight brand new planning tools, these beautiful spiral-bound books that will help me not only track working hours to make you more efficient, but also strive to help you make sure you're getting your daily steps, drinking enough water, and finding 5 minutes to pause and take note about something beautiful in your day. And today I want to suggest that this striving that we do for balance, that this, in fact, is a myth. It's one of those invented stories, ideas, or concepts. It does a great job at capturing our imaginations as we dream about the beauty of this balance. But it's an unproven belief that's used to justify or prove something, particularly in our society today. So this week on the Daily Dose, as we talk about the dance between work and life, I want to wonder with you, maybe work and life don't have to be the polar opposites of one another that we're trying to work out somehow. In the Bible, in the book of 1 Corinthians, we read these words in chapter 10, verse 31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Now, I know that some of you might roll your eyes at this, thinking that this type of verse, this idea, this is a cheesy, predictable Christian response when we wonder about how to think about our work and our life side by side. But it makes sense if we think about also about the life of Jesus and the people around him and how they lived. The laboring in the fields didn't stop when Jesus was traveling around and preaching to people. It had to continue for people's livelihood. And yet Jesus still found time to sit with people and share meals with them, and sometimes with their families as well. He encouraged Martha not to worry about many things, but he didn't tell her to simply stop working altogether. And of course, in the Bible, we hear that the greatest rule, the greatest commandment is that we hear Jesus refer to several times as this: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And that type of love, it doesn't come just naturally to us humans who mess up our relationships with our neighbors constantly. Loving our neighbors and loving ourselves, that takes work. So today I invite you to wonder, rather than striving for a myth of balance in your work and your family, Where could you instead start by focusing on the core, on that greatest commandment that Jesus talked about, on the concept of love, of tending to our hearts, and of doing it all for the glory of God? Thanks so much for watching the Daily Dose today. We would love for you to subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And maybe you want to invite a friend to watch the Daily Dose tomorrow. Thanks so much. Have a good day.